Hi there and welcome to another tutorial for using 3ds Max. So I'm going to start off with a few more keyboard shortcuts which hopefully will be useful for you. So if you remember last week we looked at you can come up here in these menus and you can set each viewport to be the top or the bottom, the front and so on. But there are some keyboard shortcuts for that, and they are written next to each of these views. So they're quite easy to remember, which is why I think it's worth learning them. So basically, F is front, and then T is top, L is for left, and then finally P is perspective. And so, as I said, they're quite easy to remember because L is for left and so on. So it's worth just remembering those. And that's particularly useful, as we said last week, if you accidentally rotate one of the orthographic views like this, you can very quickly just press T again and that will pop you back in the top view, and here I can press F and that will pop me back in the front view and so on. And you can organize these however you want. So I could have the perspective view here and I could have the front view here if I want. It's totally up to you. Okay, so let's also look at another thing we looked at last week. If I just draw this box here, in fact I'll set this one back to perspective and I'll set this one back to front just so that it's the same for everyone. But yeah, if you remember last week I said that by default your perspective view is in shaded mode, and if you want to adjust the number of segments that the box is made out of, in order to see that you'll need to see the wireframe on top of the shaded mode. And I don't know if you can remember what the keyboard shortcut is for that. Well, it's F4, the F4 key on your keyboard. So if I press that, I can now kind of see the wireframe on top of my my shaded model, which means I can see all the edges and the separate polygons. There's another keyboard shortcut, which is the key next to it, F3, basically. And what that does, that will toggle between the wireframe mode and the shaded mode. So if I press that on any of these, I could set these all to be shaded. And as I said, F4 will then toggle between the edged face mode, where you can see the kind of wireframe on top of the shaded mode. And we can toggle that on and off as well. So both of those keys, the F3 key and the F4 key, kind of work as a toggle. They go backwards and forwards between them. Just be aware that if you're in the wireframe mode and you press F4, it won't do anything because you're in wireframe mode. It can't show you kind of the shaded and the wireframe mode in that mode. So what you need to do is you'll need to press F3 one more time, and then you can toggle the edge face mode on and off. Another thing some of you may have found during the week is you might have come across a situation like this where you'll have been trying to rotate the camera, and if you remember, the keyboard shortcut for rotating the camera is to hold down the Alt key and then hold down the middle mouse button and move the mouse up or down, left or right. But as you can see, it's not rotating the camera, it's just moving it about. And the reason for that is what I've done, I've accidentally turned my view into a physical camera. And the way that I did that was I pressed Control-C on the keyboard. So in 3ds Max, Control-C doesn't copy. It actually is the shortcut for creating a camera, which is why it can be quite confusing. So what you might find is you accidentally kind of press this, and rather than holding down the Shift key to duplicate an object, you might have thought, oh, I'll just copy and paste it, because that's what you do in most packages. But then when you press Control-C to copy, it turned this viewport into a camera view. And for some reason in 3ds Max, the camera views, you can't rotate them. So if I was to try and rotate a camera view, it doesn't let me, and that's why that's happening. So what we would do is I just press P here to go back to the normal perspective view. So I press P on the keyboard, and now I can kind of rotate around, and I can see the camera here that I've got. So I could then just select that and hit the delete key on my keyboard to remove the camera, and now we're back to being able to rotate without any problems.